How many remember Pearl Harbor? Start of World War II for the United States. That was before my time. You know, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. They had a sneak attack. Even though there were warning signs and there were warnings sent to Washington, Washington chose to ignore them and Pearl Harbor got blown up. After the battle was over, the leader of the Japanese military made a statement. And he simply said, "I fear that we have awoken a sleeping giant."
Yes.
That was a quote that he made. He was afraid that they had poked the bear. They woke up a sleeping giant. And he found out real quick that's what happened. Because the United States was not involved in this war until that day. And you know, with our current situation here in the United States, the way the politicians are running everything, they're poking the bear. Unfortunately, the church, the Christians, have all been asleep. We haven't stood for what we believe. We haven't stood up and said, that's enough. Because if the Christians would stand up united, it would be just like when the United States stood up against Japan. It would awaken a sleeping bear. In Matthew 26, in verse 40, Jesus had been up on the mountain praying. And he come down and said, then he returned to the disciples and found them asleep. He said to Peter, could you stay awake and watch with me even 1 hour? Keep alert and pray, otherwise temptation will overpower you. For though the spirit is willing enough, the body is weak. The church body is weak. The church body has been asleep. We need to wake up. We need to stand up and we need to fight for God. We need to fight for our beliefs. We need to fight to get this country back. This country has gone downhill since 1969. In the 1950s, the Christians were everywhere. The churches were full. In the 1960s, it started to decline. In 1969, they formed the first occultic church. We started in California in 1969. From that point on, this country has gone downhill. Why? Because the church went to sleep. Because the church isn't involved. Just like World War II, the United States wasn't involved until they woke up a sleeping giant. It's time this giant wakes up. Regardless of what the politicians say, this is still a Christian nation. There are still more Christians. There are more people that claim to be Christians in this country than not. 85% of the people in this country claim to be Christians. The other 15% are running this country because the Christians won't take a stand. We won't stand up and we won't go out there and say, enough. We want to stay asleep. Keep our heads buried in the sand and not worry about it. It's time for that to change. There's an election coming up in a few weeks. It's a very important election. This election will influence not only the next 4 years, but the next 20 years. And I'm not going to tell you how to vote. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. That's between you and God. If you follow what God tells you, you'll make the right choice. It's not up to me to tell you how to do it. You got to vote your conscience. One candidate's going to bring this country down. The other one wants to bring it up. They both say they want to bring it up. But the views they have are totally opposite. And it's time for this giant to wake up. Go register, go vote, if you're able to. Some people are not allowed to vote. But if you're eligible, go register and vote. Quit letting the 15% control this country. It's time that we stand up, take back what's ours. And quit sleeping. The disciples couldn't even stay awake for an hour and pray while Jesus was on the mountain. When Jesus was on that mountain, he was talking to God. And in Matthew 26 and verse 30, it says he went a little further and he fell face down on the ground praying, Father, if it is possible, let this cup of suffering be taken from me. Yet I want your will, not mine. Jesus knew what was going to happen to him. Jesus knew he was going to be crucified. Jesus knew that he was going to be beaten. He knew all that. But he told God, your will, not mine. Like the song Tammy sang a while ago, keep me in your will. You know what? It's God's will that his people stand up. It's God's will that his people don't be cowards. That we take a stand. They've poked the bear long enough. It's time for the bear to attack. And the bear is the church. The bear are the Christians that are laying asleep. It's time to wake up and take our country back. The country we've got now is not fit for children to live in. I feel sorry for kids being born today. Because the way this country is going, it's going to be hard for them. It's going to be really hard. You know, I was born in 1969. It wasn't too bad through the 70s and the 80s, but it's gone downhill. And it's still going. And we've got to put a stop to it. It's time to put up a roadblock and say enough. So on election day, I urge everybody in here to vote. I urge everybody in every church in America to vote. Because we desperately need it. We desperately need to take this country back. Put Christian values back in the schools. Amen. Put Christian values back in the homes. Put Christian values back in the government. And the only way we're going to do that is if we all stand together and we vote. The last election, 85 million Christians did not vote. 85 million registered Christians did not vote. How would that have influenced an election? Let's don't make that mistake again. It's time for the bear to rise up and take this country back. Jesus died on the cross for us. Jesus stayed in God's will for us. Now we need to stay in God's will and stand up for Him. I fear that we're going to wait till it's too late to realize the dire need for Jesus in this country. And if we keep waiting, it's all going to be over. You're not going to have the rights you have. This is the last free country in the world. And we're not even free today. So we need to stand up and take our freedom back. Stand up for Jesus and put Him back where He belongs. And I can't say it enough. Vote. They tell us your vote counts. Then we need to get enough of them to count. Keep us in your will so that His will can be done, not ours. Quit sleeping. Pray. And stand guard over your heart, your house, and your country. Let's pray.